Hi folks, welcome back. So in this lecture, we will try and understand what is a subnet. Now again, it's an important construct of OCI networking services. So in the previous lecture, we went quite actually deep dive in terms of the various artifacts that are there for OCI networking services. And as part of that, we studied that there is a VCN, right? And I said that the VCN is nothing but a private addressable space, right? You're just giving a space, or you're giving a CIDR block. So the CIDR block that would normally give is something like 10.0.0.0/16, right? So what it means, as I said, the first two octets are reserved for the network bit. So only these bits are reserved for the host portion. Now what happens, because this is an addressable space, out of this you can create multiple networks. Now if I had just used simple this, then I would have a number of say only a few hosts that I could get, right? But to create many hosts, what we can do is we can actually create a sub network, and the sub network is called a subnet. And it could be in the form of 10.0. As I said, the last two portions are the host, so we will take 1.0 and we could say 10.0.2.0. so this is something like my subnet A and this is my subnet B. And what it helps is that now and this is /24 and /24, right? With this, the first three octets are reserved for network portion and the remaining is your host bit. And then you can have IP addresses like 10.0.1.1.2.3 going up to 255, right? So it goes like that. So this is all what is a subnet, right? So it says subdivision you define in a VCN, right? So as I just explained here, this was my VCN. This is a kind of a subdivision I'm doing. And you can create multiple networks, but you will have to change it from /24 to /22, /21. It depends upon you, right? The CIDR notation that you're giving. So subdivision you define in a VCN, for example, 10.0.0/24 and here as well, right? So subnets contain virtual network interface card which attach to the instance. Now the best way to understand this is that if you ask me in let's say what happens inside a normal computer, right? A normal computer would have a network interface card, right? NIC, and on the NIC you define an IP address, right? So here in cloud, what happens, we have a concept of a VNIC. We call a virtual network interface card, and this VNIC is actually defined and this IP address that you are giving is defined on the VNIC. And from where does it derive? It will derive this from the subnet, right? So whatever subnet you are part of, your IP address would be derived from there. So that is what it explains. So subnets contain the VNICs or virtual network interface card which attach to the instance, right? So so subnet, if you see here, right? So this is, let's say, my region, right? And this is my availability domains, and this is a regional subnet, right? If we talk about this one, is my regional subnet, right? So the thing is, this is my VCN and these are my AD specific subnets, and subnet 4 is a regional subnet. Now if you see, this subnet is having an instance here, right? And this instance would be having a VNIC associated with it, and that is what it is trying to say here, that subnets contain the VNIC cards. So subnet is containing the VNIC card which attach to the instance. So this VNIC is attached to the instance, and this instance is actually associated to, let's say, subnet 4, right? So it is different from the other subnets. So that's quite important, that subnets will contain the VNICs which attach to instance. And each subnet consists of a contiguous range of IP addresses. So as we explained here, this is a contiguous range. What it means is 10.0.1. Say 0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So it is contiguous, right? And it is a range of IP addresses. And subnets can be AD specific or have regional subnets. So as I said in previous lectures, like when OCI came up, like in Gen 1 and initially in Gen 2, Oracle used to say that you could create AD specific subnets. But now the recommendation is that always go with regional subnets. Now regional subnet, if I say a subnet that spans across all the ADs, like if you see a subnet 4 is a regional subnet. which is spanning across all the availability domains, right? And all VNICs in a given subnet use the same routing table and security list. Another quite important point, that all VNICs in a given subnet use the same route table and security list, right? So if I talk about these VNICs which are there in a given subnet, like VNIC 1, VNIC 2, right, VNIC 3, they all will be using the same routing table and security list. That is why now if you think, Oracle gave us the concept of network security groups. Why? Because a network security group is defined at VNIC level. Because that's what I explained you, that with security list, what used to happen was that all the VNICs used to share the same security posture. That's why Oracle came up with the concept of network security group, because you could define security posture on different VNICs differently, right? Don't get confused, pretty simple. And yes, so subnets, another important point from the exam point of view, you can designate a subnet as a public subnet or a private subnet. So as the name suggests, public subnet, right? Public subnet, so you can think about it as the instances in the public subnet have direct access to the internet, right? So if you want your artifacts to reach to the internet, you will actually put it in the public subnet. And instances in the private subnet can initiate internet connections by way of NAT gateway. As I told you that you could download the patches and all. So normally, if you ask me, private subnet would always keep, you will always keep your database servers or your databases within a private subnet, right? So, so instances in the private subnet can initiate internet connections by way of NAT gateway, right? But cannot receive any inbound connection. As I told you, from internet, you can't go to the private subnet. That is not allowed. Only from the private subnet, you can actually reach to the internet through the NAT gateway, right? But for the moment, you can just think about it that for public subnet, you will keep resources which need direct access to the internet, and private subnet you will keep where you don't want people to access your resources directly over the internet, right? So this is something like a database server you'd be keeping. So with this, we come to the end of the video. Thanks for watching.